Hey guys, welcome back to NFL Trading Room. Today we've got a fun episode for you. We're going to be breaking down my top five edge rushers in the 2026 NFL Draft. It's a bit of a controversial class. Some people think it's great, people think it's underwhelming. Pretty much everyone's top five or top tens look different orders. So this is a really interesting edge class to talk about. I have scouted 25 different edge rushers for this episode. So we've got a wide variety to talk about here. Let's go ahead and jump in. Now, I do want to start off with some honorable mentions. I have 17 edge rushers with a day two or higher grade. So we're going to talk about 12 honorable mentions here before we get into the top five. But that's just speaks to in my opinion, the depth of this edge class. So I want to kind of start in the third round grade bucket. So let's go ahead and start with those. I'll go in order from bottom to top with all of these, but first up is Tyree West out of Tennessee. He's a bit of a tweener, could be an edge, could be an interior defensive lineman. Kieron Crawford out of Auburn, Romello Height out of Texas Tech, R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma, Gabe Akis out of Illinois. And now we get into a couple of players with a late second, early third round grade, so they're kind of on the line there. We've got Jay Barham out of Michigan. He's a former linebacker, played predominantly edge this past season. Joshua Josephs out of Tennessee, and then TJ Parker out of Clemson. Then getting into some true second round grades to wrap up the honorable mentions, we've got Cassius Howell out of Texas A&M. That may surprise some people. A lot of people have him top five, some even top three. He is very explosive, and I mean I do like him. I've got a second round grade on him, but it's not necessarily the arm length that concerns me because there's another guy that we'll talk about where arm length is a quote unquote concern for him, but I'm not as concerned with him. The problem to me with Cassius Howell, now he's very athletic, very explosive, great speed rusher. Every time he went up, though, against a more powerful tackle and more translatable tackle, think of Trevor Goosby from Texas, who decided to go back. Had he come out in this offensive tackle class, he would have been my offensive tackle one. But Cash Howell really struggled in that matchup. He struggled against Miami as well. Struggles to win through the chest at times. So he's a little bit lower for me, but still excellent athlete. A lot of good ghost moves, spin moves, deep pass rush bag for him. And then rounding out the honorable mentions with the three other second round grades in this honorable mention category, we've got Malachi Lawrence out of UCF, blew up the combine, great athlete. Zion Young out of Missouri, excellent run defender, great length, still putting it together as a pass rusher, but can certainly be a contributor at the next level. And then Keldrick Falk out of Auburn. This is a guy that it seems the longer we go in the process, the more people sour on him. I'm kind of in that same boat, but I'm not as low as some other people on him. I've seen some people have the take that they wouldn't take him in the top 60 picks, which I can understand that take, but I just don't agree with it. The size profile at 6'6", 285 is reported what he played at. I would say he's probably closer to that 270 range. And based on his listing, he did drop weight going to the combine. Believe he came in at 272, which seems a lot closer to what it looked like on tape, but didn't put up the production that we were expecting or anything like that. But still, there are just some flashes that you see here and there where you know it's in there. You just need to see it more consistently. And of course, he's got that very high floor as a run defender. May be the best run defending edge in this class, although I do think there is one that's better than him that I have at the top of my list. But let's go ahead and jump into the top five. We'll get it started at number five with a bit of a surprise. This is definitely a my guy for me. This is a guy that in the summer I wasn't as high on, but dove back into his tape a few weeks ago and really liked what I saw. And it is Derek Moore out of Michigan. Derek Moore comes in at 6'3", 260 pounds. I wish I could show some clips of him, but with him being a Big Ten player, they're blocking film on YouTube still. I've seen some people be able to post it. And I've seen some people post it and get copyrighted, so don't want to necessarily take that chance right now. But Derek Moore, like I said, 6'3", 260, 23 years old. He was a true senior this past year at Michigan. I have a second round grade on him. He's got pretty good arm length. I believe he's at 33.5-inch arms. The bull rush is what really excites you. He gets pushback, a lot of pushback on that bull rush. He's very translatable in how he deploys the bull rush, collapses the pocket from the exterior there. He's got some explosion as an athlete. The first step, there are some false steps in his get off, but once he runs the arc, I think he's more athletic than I saw in 2024 when I was doing summer scouting from him. And he's got some flexibility and bend to him. I think it's more so ankle flexion than hip flexion. So he's not going to be necessarily bendy in the hips, able to bend his upper half while his lower half stays pretty stationary. But he is able to get lower half flexion and bend the corner towards the quarterback. He's got nice twitch on inside moves. I love the inside swim move that he deploys. Even the inside rip counter that he also deploys. The closing speed, along with kind of the flexibility that I was talking about, the closing speed is on a different level than I saw in 2024. 2024, Derek Moore to me was much more of a guy that is a high effort, high motor player that's going to be a solid run defender, may not be that much of a pass rusher, but I think he just took a complete different type of step in 2025. Um, and I mean, this was a consistent theme again in this 2025 tape. I just talked about it, but he plays with a lot of effort, both in the run and the pass game. Even on those more sustained rushes, collapsing the pocket for 4 or 5 seconds, he still keeps the motor on 100. There were a couple times he flashed a Euro step, so I like to see you don't need like 7 different moves, but it is nice to see a player pairing different moves together with the moves that he's already effective with. So pairing his Euro step and then using his inside shoulder to um, generate his rip move, or pairing a Euro step with a quick hand swipe and a swim move. Those are all things that I look for, and I think he does them really well. And the last thing is he plays with good leverage. We're going to get into some of the weaknesses with him. I thought he was better in 2024 against the run. He wasn't as good in 2025. He's not a DPR or anything, but I thought he was good against the run in 2024 and was kind of average in 2025 against the run. And I think the main part of that was he struggled to set the edge consistently. It seemed like the offensive tackle would kind of get him turned out and washed out too many times for my liking. And then I think sometimes when he does get pushed with that bull rush and collapses the pocket, he did finish with a high sack rate, high pressure rate, high pass rush win rate. But I think he could have finished even more in those scenarios if he was able to more consistently disengage from the bull rush and shed that block once he got the initial pushback on the bull rush. But I really, really like Derek Moore. One of the main reasons I like him is I think a lot of things that I see on tape are translatable. The way he wins with the bull rush, the setting the edge that I saw in 2024. Hopefully, he can get back to that level. Pairing the moves that he has with different counters, especially inside rushes, and the leverage that he plays with, I think combined to make him a really high floor player. And I think would definitely take a shot on him on day two. Yeah, I think he can play with his hand in the dirt in a 4-3 even front. I think he can play in a 2-point stance and in a 3-4 odd front. Really, really excited to see where his career goes, and definitely a my guy for me in this draft class. Next up at number 4, we're going to talk about a guy that, if you watch the NFL Stock Exchange, great show there with Trevor Sikkema and Connor Rogers. They've nicknamed him Leather Helmet because of his age, but it is Akeem Mesidor, the edge out of Miami. 6'3", 280 pounds, so a big edge rusher, and he's had a very interesting collegiate career. Had some injuries, played at a couple different positions. He, I believe, used to be like a 300-pound defensive tackle earlier in his career, but he slimmed down and been an edge rusher for Miami for the past couple years. But he is 25 years old. That is the thing. He will be 25 years old by the time the season rolls around. That's how I mark the ages on my spreadsheet, is what age are they going to be when the NFL season kicks off. So that's kind of how I manage that. But second round grade for me as well. For his size, he's a pretty good athlete. And there, like I mentioned, with that defense tackle background, still having that 280-pound weight, he's got the versatility to rush inside on certain downs. He generates initial knockback with his bull rush. He gets penetration in the run game. I think he sets a strong edge in the run game as well. He's got a nice swim move. He's got a very diverse pass rush move set, but I think the swim move might be his best. He's solid in coverage. There were a couple plays where he was dropping in coverage and lit up a pass catcher. even a couple times where he dropped into coverage and broke up a pass. So love to see that. And then flashed a ghost move here and there. I don't think he's the most flexible player. We'll talk about that here in a second, but he flashed it here and there. He's a physical tackler, whether that's at the quarterback or dropping in coverage or getting penetration and lighting up a running back. He's a very physical tackler. Some of the weaknesses on him, he's got below average length, so that kind of hurts him. Um, you know, getting locked out on the bull rush at times, or a lot of the times you can see it, especially in edge rushers, in whether they finish plays or not, whether they can finish at the quarterback. That's where I think you see a lot of the length concerns pop up with these guys, as opposed to just having longer arms than the offensive tackle, because there's more to it than just the raw arm length numbers. Like we mentioned, with 25 years old, he's one of the oldest players in this class, but he's not even the oldest player at his position group. That goes to Nadame Tucker from Western Michigan. So I think he's pretty stiff in the lower half. We touched on that a couple minutes ago, but not the bendiest player, definitely. And I think he's got some false steps in his get off. There are some times where he's not firing off that front foot, especially when he's in a 2-point stance. He kind of rocks back to his back foot and then goes. So every millisecond matters, especially at edge rusher. So making sure you're firing off that front foot is definitely a thing to hone in and focus on. And then we mentioned it, but the injury history is definitely there. So I can't remember exactly what injuries there were, but it was a couple different injuries. Nothing that should be anything long term, like maybe if he had like a hamstring injury 3 times and he could just never get over it. It wasn't anything like that, but it is definitely something to take note of. But even at his age, I like Akeem Mesidor, especially for a contending team if they're in the late 20s in the draft and looking to pick up a pass rusher. I think Akeem Mesidor fits into that kind of franchise building archetype well, able to help right away. A lot of people are worrying about, what he'll be in 2030, but I'm worried about what he'll be right now. And he's a very, very good player on the edge. Next up at edge number 3. This may be a bit of a surprise for people, but it is David Bailey, the edge out of Texas Tech. David Bailey comes in at 6'3", 250 pounds, 23 years old, and a true senior. He spent the latter stages, or the previous stages of his career at Stanford before transferring over to Texas Tech for this past season. And he has a second-round grade for me. Some of his strength, he's got very active hands, very diverse move set. You see him pair a lot of different moves together, whether he's countering or whether he wins on the initial rush. He plays with a lot of speed. The closing speed is ridiculous when he wins the arc and can kind of run in a straight line to the quarterback. He gets there in the snap of a finger. Really strong rip move. We'll talk about it with his flexibility. I thought he did have a nice ghost move here and there. He flashed it, but we'll talk about why that may not be a factor at the next level for him. To go along with his closing speed, he closes the gap between him and the offensive tackle so quick that the offensive tackle rarely can get hands on him, and then he can use his length to lock out the offensive lineman. He's got a really nasty spin move. It's very quick. I don't think it's as good as Cassius Howell's, but it is one of the better ones in this class. He shows the ability to be able to win through the chest, which is big for me. At some point in the NFL, you're going to have to win through the chest of an offensive tackle. These guys are so athletic now at offensive tackle. They've got such long arms. You have got to be able to win through the chest, get your hands on their breastplate of their shoulder pads and be able to lock them out and drive them back into the backfield. I think he's aware at batting down passes as well. That's something that popped up for him, especially against BYU. And the get off is very quick. It is completely different than what we talked about Akeem Mesidor. He is constantly firing off that first foot. The acceleration when he takes his first 2 steps is pretty crazy. And kind of going in with the batting down passes, he's a very explosive vertical athlete. We saw that at the combine. He logged a great vertical jump. But he is very explosive vertically, being able to jump high and bat down those passes. But that also can translate to his linear explosion. That's a lot of the times what coaches are looking for when they look at those vertical jumps. say an offensive tackle, for example, they're not going to care whether an offensive tackle can jump 34 inches necessarily because they're not going to ask him to jump straight up. But that is an indicator as to how explosive they are in the lower half. So that's kind of why that matters for a lot of prospects. And I think the another move that I saw with him that was very effective was his really strong outside stab move. Able to use a lot of times he's lined up on the left, but lined up on the right a lot too. Noticed it most when he was lined up on the left. His left hand really strong, getting that stab move into the chest of the offensive tackle and winning the corner. But the weaknesses in his game, he really gets driven in the run game. I don't think it's an effort problem, but he just does not have the anchor to consistently set the edge and be a playmaker against the run. I do think there are times where you see in flashes, like you could make a cut up of David Bailey against the run that looks really good, but the overall product is not where it needs to be at all. Um, I think he could use his length to his advantage more often, and I do think that mostly is in the run game. You see his bull rush, and he doesn't have 35-inch arms, but he's got pretty good length, and he's able to lock out offense tackles with the bull rush. So if he can continue to fill out his lower half, especially, and anchor in against the run and stay extended there, I think that would be a better use of his length, especially in the run game. Um, Continuing with the run game, he struggles to shed as well. That's another piece to it. You don't just want to get the offensive tackle locked out. You want to be able to peek around, find the ball, and shed and make the play. Really struggles in that phase of the game. And mentioned it earlier, he is very stiff in the lower half. I Someone on Twitter comped him to Von Miller, and almost that blew my mind because Von Miller is one of the bendiest edge rushers I've ever seen. That dude can get literally parallel to the ground and run the arc like nothing you've ever seen. And David Bailey just can't do that. He's very stiff in his ankles, very stiff in his hips. He's very explosive, but he's just not very flexible in those joints to be able to bend the corner and kind of flatten his path to the quarterback. And then I think, most of this is the run game. Very good pass rusher, but it is mostly the run game that I am sour on him with. The leverage really hurts him in the run game. He plays high a lot of the times. I don't think it's necessarily an effort problem with that as well. A lot of the times it looks like he's peeking to find the ball. He's just doing it with way too high of leverage. So he's got to be able to kind of sit down in his stance, win the leverage battle, and that kind of ties into just the whole run game. But David Bailey, I really can't give a first round grade out to a guy that to me is a designated pass rusher. I like a lot of the stuff that I see in pass rushing, but for me to give out a first round grade for a guy that's a DPR, not only does he have to flash power, but he also has to flash that flexibility. To me, power is more important, but you still have to be able to be flexible and display that in your game, and he just doesn't. Now, I'm not a guy that's going to want to take him in the top 10 necessarily, but in this type of class, I could certainly see it. This class is, while it's got a good amount of players, it's not as talented as your typical draft class. So he can certainly be a guy that finds his way up there. I know a lot of the NFL scouts like him. There's been a lot of chatter about that, but I'm just not as high on David Bailey as some other people. Next up at number 2, it's a guy I've kind of went back and forth on where exactly to grade him. I still have him graded as a true linebacker, but I really feel that he's going to play edge at the next level, and that is Arvell Reese out of Ohio State. Comes in at 6'4", 243 pounds, 21 years old, true junior, and he has a first-round grade for me. So I'll have 2 edge rushers with a first-round grade in this breakdown. Now, these are going to kind of be notes for both his linebacker play and his edge play. What's interesting about him is that he played a decent amount of edge early in the season, especially on passing downs. You go back to like the Illinois game, for example, played a lot of pass rush snaps there and flashed a lot. But as the second half of the season wore on, for whatever reason, Matt Patricia, the defense coordinator up there, used him mostly as a quarterback spy, which he's very good as a spy. He's very athletic. Probably the best guy you could have be a quarterback spy in the country if you wanted to make your pick and rank him. But I think they could have maximized his skill set a little bit. Even if you wanted to use him more as a blitzing linebacker, I think you could have let that area of his game shine more. But we'll talk about his linebacker and edge notes. He'll be in the linebacker video that we do as well. But I had to throw him in with the edge rushers because I do feel that he'll be an edge at the next level. But he's a very smooth athlete, especially for if he is an off-ball linebacker, for a bigger linebacker. He is a very smooth athlete. He's got vicious pop with his hands and drive power when he goes to his bull rush. But not just as a pass rusher, you see that in the run game as well. He is very physical with his hands. Pound for pound, may be the strongest player I've ever evaluated. He is so strong in his arms, in his hands, in his lower half explosion. He is just strong all the way through. Um, Rarely do you see this guy get moved off his spot, and he's always seemingly driving an offensive lineman 5 yards back in the backfield. It's pretty ridiculous, but um, he's pretty solid in underneath coverage. This could be an area of his game where if he is an edge, goes to more of like a 3-4 scheme, he may have to drop in coverage from time to time when they do bring those exotic pressures. So that is something that is a plus for him. I do think this was a note I wrote down when I was still debating whether to rank him as a linebacker or an edge. I do think once he gets fully developed at edge that he could be an all-pro type of rusher. He doesn't necessarily have the length that a lot of teams look for. I believe he's got 32-inch arms, 32 and a half, somewhere around there. Um, but everything else of his game, as far as an edge rusher goes, very impressive to me. He sheds blocks very well in the run game, both from an off-ball position and from the edge. The acceleration, this was something that did pop up when he was in quarterback spies. The acceleration is off the charts. His closing speed, you could even go back to the Texas game against Arch Manning. Arch Manning's a very good athlete. Don't let the last name fool you. He's a very, very good athlete. And Arvo Reese was able to track him down multiple times in that game. Um, as a hitter, he really lays the lumber. He's not just physical in setting the edge and shedding blocks, but he's a physical tackler as well. I believe he only had a 6.3 missed tackle rate, I believe it was, in 2025. Very, very good for a first-year starter at off-ball linebacker. The click and close, especially on screens from the off-ball linebacker position, is pretty ridiculous. He's a very smart player and able to close that distance very quickly. Um, Getting into some of the weaknesses, though, I do think if he stuck at linebacker, the run diagnostics could have been a little bit better. It definitely got better as the season wore on, but that was something to mark down. I do think there were flashes in coverage from him as a linebacker. Wasn't as consistent, though, as I would have liked. Still would have a first-round grade on him as a linebacker, but the coverage as a true off-ball linebacker was something to monitor. Um, I do think a couple times he got caught as the read option man, the read man in a read option, getting a little bit out of position there. So that's something to take note of. And then at the end of the day, it's just not much experience as an edge rusher. I think he only had 119 pass rush snaps in 2025. I wish he had way more. But there's not necessarily enough tape for some people, and even me. I kind of had to think this through of, is there enough out there to grade him as a true edge? I went back and forth on that, but with the, I think, impending switch to edge for him coming in his NFL future, I think I had to make the switch there for him. But Arvo Reese, so explosive, so much fun to watch. Probably the most fun I've had watching a defensive player in this class. And I hope he's an edge at the next level because I think he could be a dang good one. But even if he is an off-ball linebacker, could be dang good there as well. And getting into edge one, it is Ruben Bain Jr. out of Miami. So much fun to watch. Comes in at 6'3", 270 pounds, 21 years old, a true junior and a first round grade for me. Getting into his strengths, he sets a really hard edge. He is an excellent run defender. I think the best run defender at edge in this class. He's very physical at the point of attack, both in taking on blocks and as a tackler. He's got very explosive, active hands, generates a lot of shock, a lot of knockback with his hands. And then with him as a pass rusher, he's got an excellent Euro step and rip move. His motor runs white hot. He's got high effort plays all over his tape. And just, I love to see that, especially from a guy that's 270 pounds. You don't see a whole lot of those guys be able to make a lot of those effort plays, and he does consistently. Um, I think he's got some flexibility to him, especially at his size. He's able to bend the corner pretty well. The leverage is something that really stands out in the run game. He is never the high man at the point of attack. He's always lower than the offensive tackle or the offensive guard, whoever ends up blocking him. He is always the low man. We know the old term "low man wins." That is certainly true with Ruben Bain Jr. Going back to his flexibility, the ghost move is pretty effective. And then diving back into the hands, the bull rush is so much fun to watch. It's not a whole lot of times that you see a guy with this sort of arms be able to have that dominant of a bull rush, but he gets into offensive tackle's chest so quick, closes that distance very quick, and plays with such good leverage that offensive tackles struggle to anchor down and get hands on him. Um, the swim move is definitely something that stands out on tape, and just overall as a block shedder, is just very effective. Sheds blocks well in the as a pass rusher, sheds blocks well in run defense as well. A couple more of the moves that I noticed from him that really popped off the screen. Really nice club move, especially going to the outside, and even shows the cross chop from time to time, which is something you don't see too often from these bigger edge rushers, but he definitely breaks it out from time to time. Some of the weaknesses I wrote down, while he does have a wide variety of rush moves that he can go to and has maybe the best motor of any edge rusher in this class, I do think there are times where he could get a little bit more nuanced with his counters in the second stage of the rush if his initial rush doesn't win, which is rare. But he could get better at that about countering late in the rep to finish the play off. He lacks length, which there's been so much discussion about it. Um, Really, my take on it is I don't see the lack of length really hurt him as a pass rusher or a run defender. I do see it come up, though, when it comes to finishing plays where he's so close to getting a sack on a quarterback, but the quarterback is just out of his reach. That's where I mainly see it when he's trying to finish a sack or finish a tackle. That's where I mainly see the lack of length come up. And then along with the length, there are times where he gets reached in the run game in wide zone by longer offensive tackles. So that is something else to monitor. But Ruben Bain, I mean, there's just so much to like in my opinion. He's my number 2 overall player in this draft class. Um, Really hoping he falls to number 4 for my Tennessee Titans. That would be so much fun to watch him and Jermaine Johnson, Jeffrey Simmons, and John Franklin Myers. That would be so much fun to watch. But really excited to see where he goes. Excited to see him prove the doubters in his arm length wrong. But yeah, he is my top overall edge. Really love Ruben Bain. And that does it for this edge breakdown, my top 5 edge rushers in the 2026 NFL Draft. If you guys wouldn't mind to go down below, drop a like, drop a comment, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That would just let us know that you're enjoying the content, and we'll continue to bring draft content to you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. This is a really fun class. Excited to get into more position groups and bring those breakdowns to you guys. But we'll see you guys next time.